Joseph had no idea what God was doing. One day, he was at home with his family. The next, his own brothers had betrayed him and sold him into Egypt. And for years, his life only seemed to get worse. But what Joseph couldn't see was that God was leading him somewhere he never could have imagined. Joseph was one of Jacob's sons. His father loved him deeply, and Joseph had dreams about his future, dreams where his family would one day bow before him. But his brothers hated hearing about them. They were jealous, and eventually that jealousy turned into something much worse. One day, Joseph came looking for his brothers. He didn't know what they had planned. They took his coat, they threw him into a pit, and then they sold him. Just like that, Joseph was taken away from his home and brought to Egypt. Think about that. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know if he'd ever see his family again, and whatever future he had imagined for himself probably seemed impossible now. But sometimes you can be standing in the middle of a story without knowing how it's gonna end. In Egypt, Joseph eventually found himself in prison. Years went by and nothing seemed to be changing. If Joseph had only looked at his situation, there wasn't much reason to be hopeful. But God was still there. Joseph just couldn't see what was coming. Then one day, everything changed. Pharaoh needed someone to interpret his dreams, and Joseph was brought before him. Joseph interpreted the dreams and warned Pharaoh about a famine that was coming. Pharaoh recognized Joseph's wisdom, and the prisoner who had once been forgotten was suddenly placed in charge of Egypt's food supply. It's hard to imagine how Joseph must have felt. Years earlier, he was sitting in a prison cell. Now, he was standing in a position of power. Then, the famine came, and Joseph's brothers traveled to Egypt looking for food. They stood in front of Joseph, but they didn't recognize him. Joseph knew exactly who they were. These were the same brothers who had sold him. He could have used his position against them. Instead, he chose forgiveness. And after all those years, Joseph was finally reunited with his family. Looking back, Joseph could see something he couldn't see when he was in the pit. The pit wasn't the end. Egypt wasn't the end. The prison wasn't the end. He had no idea where God was taking him. He only knew what was happening in front of him. And maybe that's what makes Joseph's story so powerful. Because sometimes fate means continuing to trust God when you can't see what's ahead. Maybe you're in a situation like that right now. Maybe nothing seems to be going the way you expected. But Joseph's story is a reminder. Not seeing the plan doesn't mean there isn't one. You might not understand what God is doing today, but that doesn't mean He's finished. Keep trusting in Him.